Last week, the 4.6 billion rand River Club development project was back in the spotlight. The River Club precinct is situated along the Liesbeek River in Observatory, Cape Town, on a floodplain. It formerly housed a golf course, conference centre and restaurant. The Western Cape High Court heard a case to halt the development. Although the development has already begun, the Observatory Civic Association and the Goreng High Corner Khoi and Indigenous Traditional Council have called for an interdict to stop construction on what they consider as sacred land. The developers of this piece of land are the Liesbeek Leisure Property Trust, who will be opposing the interdict based on economic potential. The primary tenant in the development is tech giant Amazon, which wants to construct its Africa headquarters.
Despite of the irrefutable evidence, the irrefutable oral historical narrative that underpins the value and the incredible treasure that this precinct is, Amazon has chosen, out of all the sites that it was given options for, this particular site to put its concrete block as its African headquarters. The same way the Dutch East India Company in 1657 was responsible for the theft of land through the deployment of title deeds in 1657 on the same embankments, we are seeing a repeating of history today. So for us it's important that we hold the line, because this is a very dangerous precedent. When price on this kind of heritage is put to the stake, if we do not push against it, it means that things that are sacred in our lives become compromised. And the very definition of heritage is something that becomes even more and more vulnerable, especially for Indigenous communities around the world and for everybody.
It was the site of the first resistance of Indigenous people to Portuguese intrusion and later a war with the Dutch. It's also an important environmental site. It is a floodplain. The city's own environmental management department opposed the development, but the city planners overruled it. And thirdly, it's a matter of democracy, because we believe that the way in which this decision was made has undermined democratic processes. And it's quite clear to us, and that's in our court papers, that the decision shouldn't have been to approve this development. Amazon had many other sites they could have chosen. In fact, they had 5 shortlisted sites, and the River Club was not one of those 5. And then suddenly in the shorter shortlist of 3, the River Club was at the top of the shortlist. So we don't understand how that happened or why that happened, but it's not the case that if this development is stopped, Amazon will leave South Africa. They are here to stay, they're going to set up a headquarters, and they have plenty other opportunities to do so.
The city had plans that stated very clearly that the 2 rivers, which called the Trump, that's where the word Trump comes from, because that's what they call it, the Trump development, to restore the 2 rivers, to clean up that space. And they in their report stated that it has significant heritage, it's a heritage site that deserves even World Heritage status. And therefore the site was protected. You see, so that documentation is there. And only after Amazon came on the scene, all those plans were set aside.
However, another Khoi and San organisation called the Western Cape First Nations Collective has taken the side of the developers. It is alleged that an agreement was made with the developer to erect a unique cultural hub dedicated to the Indigenous Khoi and San heritage.
What do we want out of the case today? Number one, we believe that the court should give clearance and the go-ahead for the development, so that we can have a space in the center of that development to create an international heritage and cultural center, a garden of memory, and an international Indigenous media center, through which we can carry our message of indigeneity to South Africa and to the rest of the world.
But for other Khoi and San representatives, this alternative will not suffice.
They are in to benefit for themselves in terms of that collective. The rest of the San and Khoi communities that are extremely upset and worried about not just this case, but the fact that as we are speaking right now, concrete is being laid down on those embankments that should be instead preserved for a National World Heritage Site.